Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bet Me a Date. We are going to be speaking with Dr. Neha Dixit today. She is a neuropsychologist on how to get back to dating or how to start dating. If you have had a head injury or you are a brain injury, or if you've dealt with another neurological issue. Subscribe to our channel and check out more videos that we release every Sunday and Thursday at 6 p.m. on overcoming dating challenges. I'm Dr. Aviva Gaskill. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I have helped dozens of people overcome dating challenges, but I can't do this work alone. I do it with the help and support of people like Dr. Neha Dixit, who is a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist, who helps people primarily with brain injuries and neurological issues. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back to Bet Me a Date. Today, I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Neha Dixit. She is a neuropsychologist here in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and she's also a clinical psychologist, and she's going to be speaking with us about head injuries and neurological issues and dating with or after a head injury or neurological issue. Dr. Dixit, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Dr. Gaskell. It's really great to be with you guys. I am, as you said, a clinical neuropsychologist as well as a clinical psychologist. And what that means is I work primarily with patients who have had any kind of acquired or developmental insult to the brain. So you could have things like epilepsy, or have had a stroke, or have changes to your brain that are related to aging, or as you suggested, have had sustained another type of brain injury. And I work primarily with folks who have neurological dysfunction. So I'm really excited to be here and chat with you.
And you and I are connected not just because we are both psychologists in the area, but also because we're part of the National MS Society and various providers that they connect with. So, I think MS is also, right, Parkinsons, those are also, right, some really great conditions that you work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you tell us, and I know that they're all different, right? They all present differently, and each person is different. So one person with a head injury may be different than present very differently than another person with a head injury. But can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the main things that you see in your practice, general issues and symptoms that you see with people with head injuries and people with neurological issues, ongoing neurological issues?
Absolutely. So when we think about the brain and how it functions, we think about emotional functioning and mental health when it comes to the brain, but we also think about cognitive functioning.
Mhm.
And cognitive functioning is, sort of, it's grouped into different domains. So that folks that have had insults to their brains may have difficulty with memory, attention, concentration, their speed of processing, so how fast they can think and how fast they can do things.
Mhm.
They may have some trouble, and this goes along with memory, with some language. So they could have trouble remembering words or thinking about words really fast. They could also just have trouble with language. Let's say they've had a stroke. And the part of their brain that the language center is involved in is injured. They may just have trouble with production of language. So those are some areas that people struggle with. I would say the most common struggles with folks across the board are struggles with memory and attention and concentration.
Yeah, yeah. How do you see some of these brain injuries or brain insults affect people's dating? Again, whether it's a chronic issue or it's usually a chronic issue, but whether it's more of a sudden onset like a head injury, or it's an illness or something like that that's caused brain injury issues or brain changes. How do you think these affect dating?
I think with dating, there's a certain level of confidence and sort of self-efficacy that goes along with dating. How good you feel about yourself, how nerves maybe affect you on a moment-to-moment basis. So I sometimes think about a first date, and first dates are hard just in general because you're meeting somebody for the first time and you might be nervous. But if you have brain insult or cognitive dysfunction on top of that general nerviness that can happen with a first date, you might have more trouble finding your words. You might
Mhm.
find that all of a sudden your mind just goes blank.
Yeah.
So even though the memories are there and the stories are there, you have trouble accessing those stories. And that can take a big hit on confidence. And I think
Good
so.
point.
Probably one of the biggest things that folks with any neurological insult probably struggle with in relationships, especially dating relationships and new relationships, is that confidence to step forward with who they are, because um, there's not really always a good understanding of what your day is going to feel like. Are you going to wake up with a lot of troubles? Are you going to wake up with sort of a better day where your brain's a little sharper?
Mhm.
What's that day going to look like? And then if you whittle that down to a date, then what's that date going to look like?
Yeah.
And so I
Or
think
I was saying, do you have to cancel last minute because you have a
exactly,
migraine?
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And then if something were to happen while you're dating, right? Let's say we'll go with this first date or second date example. What do you do? How do you explain what
Mhm.
just happened? Do you have to get into all the gory details if you don't want to talk about your private life?
Mhm.
So managing some of that before the date can be helpful. And I think the other thing to talk about a little bit is, my guess is we can get into this a little bit later too, is folks that sometimes have brain injury have hurt and insulted parts of their brain that affect their personalities.
Yeah.
So highs become really high, lows are low.
Mhm.
Rejection can be really difficult. And when I
Mhm.
say difficult,
Mm.
rejection's hard for everybody.
Yeah.
But when you have pathways in your brain that are broken, the ones that help you regulate
Yeah.
your disappointment and regulate how you respond to disappointment, I think dating can be very challenging. It's hard not to
Yeah.
take things personally.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really right. It's hard enough for a lot of people to not take things personally, but I think you're right. It's especially hard. Stick around for more of Dr. Neha Dixit's insights on overcoming dating while living with and dealing with brain injuries, neurological issues.
Yeah.
And I was thinking what you're talking about with memory, right? Like that can really, I feel like it would be so easy for someone who lives with again a head injury or other cognitive issue to show up to a date and like forget, even though they might have been so excited for that date and said that person's name over in their heads like a
Yep.
hundred times, they may blank out when they get there and they meet the person, and that can feel so embarrassing, but at the same time not their fault and
Right.
not anything that they did wrong, but it's really challenging. So then my next question is, how do you manage in spite of things like these memory issues, these confidence issues? What can people do?
I think practice, as odd as this sounds, practicing with somebody that you're comfortable with
Yeah.
can definitely help the confidence, and it can definitely help the memory stuff.
Yeah.
So sometimes I like to share with patients, you can make a joke out of a
Mhm.
memory loss or a lapse, like, oh, your name's coming to me, but you got to give me a second,
Yeah.
or whatever joke comes your way. And if you practice that kind of slip with, let's say, a parent or a close friend, then you're more likely to feel comfortable if that slip happens in a new relationship. So
Yeah.
I always say practice, practice, practice. That's probably your best bet.
That
Um,
exposure
Exposure,
piece. Yeah.
exactly. So that even that anxiety that rises inside of you, you're used to what that might feel like, and
Yeah.
you got some options in your back pocket.
Yeah.
And that's
I would say you could even say something like, I was so excited to meet you. I forgot your name,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You know,
And people do that all the time, right? And if you are feeling more comfortable, there's some people for whom an illness or diagnosis is part of their identity, and they're at a point in their journey with their disease or their illness that they're ready to be open and upfront about it. And so,
yeah.
some people, I share that if you feel okay being honest, you can say, I will get to your name, but my Parkinson's is kicking in a little bit right now,
Yeah.
or that senior moment that I'm having. I work with older adults, and
Yeah.
I always tell them, use that senior moment line, because everybody has them.
Yeah. So speaking of, right, and we can talk about this just briefly, but when should people disclose
Hmm.
on a date? I know this isn't one of the questions I sort of had prepared for you, but when is a good time to disclose? Or maybe you don't want to. And the question of like, do you have to disclose on a date? And should it be a first date, or should it be even before you go out, that you've had a head injury or that you live with other cognitive challenges?
I think it's really dependent on what your own feelings are about your strengths and weaknesses as it relates
Mhm.
to your neurological condition.
Mhm.
So some people who are very comfortable with their neurological condition, or maybe have been living it for quite a while, don't have as much maybe shame or stressors around the notion of living with an illness.
Mhm.
Those people may be interested in disclosing as soon as it feels comfortable, like
Yeah.
within the relationship that they're starting. Other people may find that being that vulnerable is not comfortable for them,
Yeah.
especially, it's hard enough getting out there and putting yourself out there with a new person. And you may find like, no, no one needs to know that personal information about myself. I'm going to talk about my dog and leave it at that in my
Yeah.
interest,
Yeah.
and so for those folks, maybe waiting longer may feel right, and that might be the right thing for them. I think it's really dependent on what works for you inside.
Yeah.
Feeling pressure to disclose can really add on, oddly enough, to the stressors of the interaction anyway, which
Yeah.
can really affect your memory and really affect your anxiety. So I think taking that pressure off to reveal is critical when you're meeting new people.
Yeah, what I guess what I'm hearing you say is that, like, you're gonna feel kind of heightened when you disclose, but do it at a time when you feel at least significantly safer, with this person, and more comfortable with this new person. Do you have any other tips for us on kind of managing dating, in spite of neurological issues?
I think slowing down a conversation is always a great idea. So if you're the person um, who knows that you want to hear a story, but getting all of that information in and then asking the right questions back is hard because there's just too much information coming at you. Slow the conversation down. Make it about a topic, or ask a question about a topic that you have interest in.
Yeah.
You're more likely to hang on to that topic, engage with that topic. I also like to suggest that if you're meeting at a restaurant or you're meeting in a park, meet somewhere or suggest something that feels comfortable for you, a place that a place
Mhm.
you're familiar with. Um, Small stressors that you don't even think about, but that can really tax your brain even before meeting somebody,
Yeah.
is the directions to get somewhere.
Yeah.
Or um, maybe you are somebody who has a physical ailment along with your neurological condition, and you need to sit close to a bathroom so that you can
Yeah.
excuse yourself. So scoping out a restaurant and knowing where you want to sit, that might be something that's easier. Any way that you can make yourself more comfortable and set yourself up in your environment to be comfortable is going to make that day go a little better.
Yeah. Oh, that's such great information. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us today. Where can people who are interested, Dr. Dixit, find out more about you and the practice that you have?
My practice is Mindful Neuropsychological Services, and I practice in Bryn Mawr. I'm a solo practitioner, so folks can reach me at www.mindfulneurons.com, or they can do a Google search with my name. And I see anybody from age 18 to 80 something. I go across the adult spectrum. I do both therapy and cognitive testing.
Great. Thank you so much again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And join betmeadate.com to overcome all of your dating challenges. Like, subscribe, and check out more of our content from Bet Me a Date on YouTube.